What is going on, guys? My name is Brady Clockengay, your host, and welcome back to another episode of The Peace Talk, a podcast about the people. What we aim to create here is a healing process for those involved in a safe, comfortable environment. I, Brady Clockengay, will ask our guests a few questions centered around something they went through in life that perhaps they struggled with. Maybe they came to a solution, or maybe they haven't yet. But through these series of questions and open, free-flowing conversation, we come to a solution together. So either way, whether they've come to a solution on their own or on the show, it's a learning and healing process for us all. This is special because, as you know, we all have our own unique situations, but more than likely, the emotions we experience through those situations are the same or similar to someone else's experiences. Our lives are obviously unique to ourselves, but similar in many fashions too, which is where the magic and healing happens. We can learn best from each other, which brings us closer as a collective, knowing we go through the same emotions and circumstances, and we can all become the best versions of ourselves. It is my honor and pleasure to be speaking in front of you all today, and without further ado, let's get into it. All right, guys. My name is Brady Clockengay. It is both an honor and a pleasure to have you guys on for another episode of The Peace Talk, a podcast about the people. Today, I'm excited to bring on the wonderful Brett. He has his own Instagram page at Juice Feaster, and he's been a part of the conscious community since 2014. He's a new awesome member of our community, so give him a warm welcome. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Thank you. Good to be here, Brady.
Pleasure to have you. All right, so here on the Peace Talk, the idea and the direction we like to take is pretty free-flowing. I'll ask a few questions, and wherever the conversation takes us is, where we'll go.
Awesome. I love it.
The first couple questions are usually pretty easy just to kind of get us started. So for this first one, tell us a couple things about yourself and why you were interested in sharing your insights on the Peace Talk here today.
Oh, gosh. Where do I begin? Let's see. In a nutshell, we could say I grew up in Indiana on a farm, small family farm that had been in the family since the 1800s, actually
Awesome.
homesteaded in 1837 through some of the land grant stuff that was happening back at that time. And my family has been there ever since.
Wow.
Both my parents were school teachers, so grew up in a teaching / farming family, and went to school, went to college, educated myself in food science, food chemistry, and kind of went on to work in the juice industry, the commercial juice industry. And fast forward a little bit further, my wife and I kind of scratched our entrepreneurial itch and started a winery.
Really?
Started a winery in 2004, kind of playing into my interest in beekeeping.
Okay.
I had always had an interest in beekeeping, so I started keeping some honeybees, and we were looking for an entrepreneurial venture. So we started a winery that specialized in making wine out of honey, and so it's called mead. And we made mead and hard cider, which is a fermented beverage made with apples. We did that for about 15 years, and this kind of wraps it all up. I had been having some health problems, some health issues, and felt like I needed to kind of dig deeper into my health issues. So I worked my way up to a 30-day juice feast, which is, for those of you who aren't familiar with that, basically I consumed juice only for 30 days. And feast versus fast, meaning I drank anywhere from 1 to 2 gallons of juice per day, and a half gallon to a gallon of water. So no restriction in calories, but juice only. And
so no solid foods.
No solid foods whatsoever. Okay. So green juices, fruit juices. About 80% of my consumption was fruit juice, and 20% roughly was green juices. But it was during that 30-day juice feast that I kind of felt what it felt to feel like a real human again. And made a decision during that 30 days, probably about halfway through, 2 to 3 weeks through the 30 days, that I no longer wanted to be in the alcohol industry. And so we had run our business, our winery, for 15 years. And so it was a pretty watershed moment for me. My wife was already ready to
Right.
exit the industry. But I guess it just took me kind of coming to my senses, and we made the decision to opt out. We kind of got clear on selling that business and getting out, and made the transition to becoming someone who helps people improve their health through juicing and raw living foods. So that's kind of my new career. So that's kind of the long story into a short story for you there.
No, that's awesome, and I kind of resonate with you as far as. So do you still consume alcohol to a certain extent, or are you out completely?
Yeah, I'm out
Yeah.
completely. I think and I don't have anything against it,
Right.
and this is something that maybe we can get into a little bit. Something that plagued me a little bit over the course of my younger to middle adulthood,
Mm-hmm.
um, was alcohol and how I engaged with it.
Right.
And I think that everyone can interact with substances like that at a different level. And for me, it was something that once I experienced what I experienced during that 30-day cleanse, I decided that it just wasn't for me any longer. So
Right.
nothing against those that still enjoy it. So it's everyone's on their own path for sure.
Absolutely, and that's kind of where I resonate with you as far as that goes. Is early in my adult life, I feel like we've all had our experiences with alcohol, but then
Sure.
when looking deeper into the subject, I actually saw where like the origin of the word spirits comes from, and
Okay.
it sort of talks about when you're drinking a spirit. Uh, when you have the alcohol in your system, you're opening kind of your energy to all the spirits and entities around you, and you're not always letting in the best energy or spirits
Sure.
when you're under the influence of alcohol. And when kind of looking at that, that's kind of when I took a step back from alcohol myself. Now I usually just strictly just social drinking. I don't ever drink it in my free
Sure.
time or anything like that. But
Sure.
there's definitely I feel like there's a lot of people that could benefit from kind of looking into their habits when it's associated with alcohol. I'm sure we all have our experiences where we've done things that we probably wish we didn't do, but
Sure.
uh,
Yeah. And yeah, that's really what happened to me. I was doing the juice thing for health reasons, and it opened up, exposure to other things that I remembered from my youth when I felt so much better, and I
right,
felt real, and I felt, I woke up energized, and I just felt alive again. And so there was no reason for me at that point to kind of keep it in my life in the way that it had been before. So yeah, it was cool experience that I went on after that 30-day, after we finalized the sale of our business. Once I got through the transition of the business sale with my wife and passing the torch to the new owners, I embarked on 105 days juice only, just to
mm.
go a little deeper. And I felt like I what I experienced on the 30-day really was, exponential in the 105-day. So kind of took it from there.
Absolutely. Yeah, so two things there. Yeah, I think people forget about the fact that alcohol is a depressant, and
Mm-hmm.
especially once you get into your adult life and you can drink it legally now, and people kind of just run to that when they have any sort of issue or stress. When a lot of times, that's going to just contribute to more negative energy surrounding whatever problem that you're drinking to escape from in the first place.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
aside from that, you were talking about how you went deeper into your juice cleanse. You said
Mm-hmm.
105 days. What exactly is the feeling that you experience when you're doing that? Like, do you feel like lighter, just more energetic, or like what does that feel like?
Yeah, really all of the above. You know, for me, my energy levels are incredible. The feeling of lightness and levity and clarity, mental clarity is really just amazing. And it only it only takes, a week, 5 days to a week to kind of get into that once I go into juice only. And then it just keeps getting better and better the longer that I stay on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't recommend everyone just jump right into something like that. It took some time
Right.
for me to work up to it, and some, a lot of research and figuring out how to do it safely and effectively. But the level of clarity, mental clarity, and the feeling that I have when I wake up in the morning when I'm on, an extended juice feast like that, it's just, there's really been nothing in my life that, no substance that I've ever taken, no food that I've ever eaten, no um, activity that I've ever done that has really measured up with it. And I've, done adventure sports, and I've done, you know, all sorts of substances, and nothing really has measured up to how I feel when I get on, uh, a juice only period of time. So um, I think probably uh, the most really point of mention about how I feel that always gets my attention
Right.
is after 5 to 7 days of being on juice only, I wake up in the morning, usually early, usually kind of between like 4 and 5:30 in the morning, without any alarm clock, and I have this low humming, buzzing energy, and I've never experienced anything quite like it. It's just like an almost an audible hum within my chest,
Mm.
and um, I've never experienced anything like that, and I don't even really know how to explain it. And I haven't really found anything that has, in my research, that described what it is. But that feeling is unmatched, and I really enjoy it when I get it. And I like to think that it's just consuming nothing but the things that my body enjoys the most
Absolutely.
and works the best on. And so it's allowing my body to be a human, to be a real human. I'm getting concentrated nutrition. I'm easing up on my digestion. I'm getting all of these things that are happening for me, that really don't happen in a normal modern world. So yeah, that's kind of what I experience when I go a little deeper.
That's amazing. And I think
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
think the
cool.
first tidbit of insight that we've gotten from you so far is this: you got to find what's what resonates with your body. We're all individuals, and that all we all are. We all have our own instances of like what we need, and for you, it's the juice. But if you can find that diet or that fast that works for you, you can kind of enter that almost like Zen state. It kind of sounded like what you were talking about.
Totally like that. Totally like that. And there's also an experience that I feel when I go out into public, when I'm in that zone as well. And you kind of feel like you're outside looking in. You're almost like kind of hovering above things looking in. And that's pretty trippy too, So like
Yeah.
being able to, um, in a way, remove yourself, um, even though you're immersed in it, you're and I don't want to say it feels like you're an outsider, but it definitely gives you a different perspective of how you walk through the world, and the things that you put in your body, and the music, the energy, the people that you surround yourself with, and all these things that you might not think too much about on a daily basis. It really kind of brings them up to the surface, so that um, you're just more conscious. To me, it's a really good opportunity just to be more conscious.
Absolutely. And you can't
Yeah, super
you
cool.
can't put a price tag on that.
No,
I've been
no,
doing a lot of inner work myself the last few months, and I've experienced those same emotions as far as who I surround myself with and what type of energy I allow into my life. When you have that feeling of consciousness, you don't want to put yourself through those, those things that used to give you pain and used to make you feel bad about yourself anymore. And again, like there's no price tag that you can put on that. It really is just invaluable.
Yeah. And those things play so much into our daily lives,
Yeah.
the present and how we roll into the future for sure.
100%. 100%. So for our next question, what are some activities that you did in your youth that made you feel alive or at peace? And I like to ask this question because I feel like a lot of us could, it can bring a lot of good into our lives to reconnect with that inner child. Again, like I were talking about a little bit earlier, is you get into the adult life and you kind of forget about all those feelings. So, what are some things that you did then?
Yeah, for me, growing up in a rural area on our farm, we had some forested areas and some creeks that ran through those forested areas. And for me, if I ever had any spare time or an opportunity, I was in the woods. I was in the woods. I was wading in the creek. I was catching crawdads. Just like anything
Yeah,
that I could do to be. And it was just something I did naturally. No one said, "Hey, Brett, let's go to the woods," or my brother was quite a bit older than me. He was almost 5 years older than me, so he didn't want to hang with me, and I didn't really want to hang with him. So I was out on my own, doing a lot. My friends lived a distance away, so it was pretty much me figuring out what I wanted to do on my own. So for me, getting to the woods and getting in the creek was where it was at with me, and it's something that I've definitely, as I've gone through my adult life and my career, that wasn't as much of a focus. You're focused on making a living and keeping your business running or your job or what have you. And so it's been nice over the last few years to really kind of re-engage with that kind of carefree interaction with nature.
hmm
And I do definitely. I'm glad you asked that question because that's kind of how it makes me feel when I get back out in nature. It's that same feeling that I had when I was a kid, and that's kind of what I re-experienced when I got into the juice thing, was feeling what it felt like when I was a kid. I didn't
exactly.
have any health issues. I was carefree, and so that's what I was after, I think, intuitively. And so the nature just falls right in there with it, for sure. There's an energy there that's just unmatched.
Uh, exactly, and that's why I love to ask this question. Is especially having a kid of my own. When you're a child, you're just so innocent and you're just living in the present moment. Everything else
Mhm.
outside of you has no meaning except what's right in front of you. And if we as adults can even just capture 10% of that, I just feel like we'd be so much happier in our daily
Yeah,
lives. Like
yeah,
a lot of times I look
agreed.
at my son and I'm just like, I'm jealous of him. Just like, man, like look at you just having the time of your life with just what's here in front of you, and I'm over here, like you said, like stressing about like, making other things in our adult life work. And um, yeah, we just all gotta go back to that and realize that we all do still have that inner child
Hmm.
inside of us, and
Absolutely.
forever, as long as we're around, that'll be there. So we
Hmm.
can't forget about
Absolutely.
that innocence.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's cool. My wife and I don't have any children, but yeah, I always love to talk to parents who, they're experiencing that, and I think that's cool that you have that lens to kind of
Yeah,
take another look again at what's going on. I'm sure it gives you a totally fresh perspective.
exactly, exactly.
That's cool.
It's amazing. And another thing that I like that you touched on was when you were a child and you were out in nature. There was a lot of times when you were by yourself, just kind of doing your thing and figuring out what you enjoyed. And I feel like that's another thing that a lot of people in today's age could benefit from, especially with technology. We're all interconnected, and it's like we're all in each other's faces all the time, 24/7.
Right.
And a lot of people, I think, are afraid to kind of take that step back and be by themselves and kind of learn about themselves. Everyone feels like they need to be with someone else to and share those experiences with them, which is great. Like you should do that too. But you have to have that balance of taking a step back and being on your own, but then, also being with others too. I mean, they're equally as important for one another. So I'm happy that you touched on that.
Yeah, cool. It's definitely been good for me. And I like to, now I like to get out in nature by myself.
Yeah.
Usually if I do that, it's on a bike ride or, something of that nature. Hiking wise, it's usually with my wife or my wife and some friends together.
Right.
So yeah, they're great experiences for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always loved my alone time, but especially now having a little guy around,
Yeah,
I really
yeah, I'm
cherish
sure.
it now.
The little one, 2 years old, that's all consuming, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%. Um,
it, it's great you can actually do a podcast though. You're keeping that rolling.
yeah, exactly. I like to take advantage of the weekend. That's my wife. She doesn't work, so she's able to scoop him up and take him outside, which he could use a lot more of, I think, right now anyway.
Yeah,
And with this whole
cool.
thing going on, yeah, I do a
Sure.
lot of my work from home, so he's here with
Mhm.
me. So every
Mhm.
every chance that he gets out there, is a good thing
It's
for
good.
him.
That's good.
Yeah.
Definitely.
For this next question, and this one isn't necessarily to like call you out or make you look silly. It's more so, we're all human beings and we all have things that we could work on. So for this next one, what are some topics or things that you're not very good at or that you would like to improve on?
uh, yeah. Here again, where do we begin? I'm a terrible procrastinator.
Nah.
I for projects, certain projects, and I don't know. I don't know if I figured out exactly why certain projects I'm a procrastinator on, but I always seem to do. I say to myself that I do much better under pressure when there's a looming deadline, but I think that's just because I have to. There's
Right.
no other choice. I think it would probably be a lot better if I just didn't procrastinate. But I'm a terrible procrastinator, and it drives my wife crazy, and I'm sure people that are involved in projects with me. But when I'm specifically responsible for my own um, part of my own project, I can really get bad at that. I can I can be the worst at it. When I put my mind to it and I get started and I get in the flow and I get in the zone, I'm very persistent and very I'm able to take things through to fruition.
Right.
But sometimes just getting me started and initiating and making that first step happen is something I can definitely use some improvement on.
Yeah, I definitely hear you there on that one. I feel like I'm the same way. Taking that first step, I'm just like, yeah, I have time. But then once I get into it, like, I just see it all the way through and make sure it all gets done.
Yeah,
But
so follow through. We're sounds like we're similar. Follow through is great, and taking it to the finish line is great, but sometimes getting it started is
yeah,
tough.
yeah. Um, so
That's one
if
thing. I don't know. We could probably keep going all day.
I mean, if you wanna go with another one, we
I
have
don't know
time.
how incriminating I want to be about myself here. Maybe should be good. This is good therapy for me to
Yeah.
dig on this. I guess maybe one other thing that I could talk about, kind of going back to the alcohol situation that I had with myself.
hmm
Um, for me, one of the things that I had kind of as a problem with alcohol, like I didn't drink every day. Um, and sometimes I might not drink for weeks on end. But when I did drink, I just couldn't stop. Just like once
Right.
I would get started, and you would get that initial feeling, and I think sometimes maybe not only just with alcohol, and I think there may be some advantage in talking this through with you and with myself, is that sometimes when I feel that feeling and get engaged with that feeling, I want it more. And so for the alcohol, I thought it was making me feel good,
Right.
but it was actually kind of causing the opposite effect. And so I often find that same thing with other things that I experience or I dig into. At one point in my life, my buddy and I did a cross country bicycle trip, and so once I got started in the cycling, world, I just wanted to just keep cycling, keep riding my bike, and just keep digging in. And, we did 4,200 miles on a bicycle. And when we finished that, I felt this interest in just continuing, and kind of had to stop myself. So I think there's that inclination on my part to, once I get started on something, no matter whether it's good or bad, I don't know necessarily when to quit. So I think finding ways to channel that energy of, you know, persistence into really amazing things is a good attribute, but could be, something, if you're involved in the wrong things, could be a definite problem. So I guess you could view it both ways.
Absolutely. I think it just all comes back to balance, right?
Totally.
You got to find that healthy balance, and that's something that
Mm.
we could all work on, and whatever it is that we're doing in life is balance. That's something
Yeah.
that I've really been trying to work on lately myself. And as I've been going through this podcast and hearing people talk about this question in particular, I feel like that it's kind of cliche, but I feel like that's could be a lot of the question, or a lot of the answer to their questions is it's just finding that healthy balance whenever you're doing
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And it's easy to overlook that, but the answer doesn't always have to be some complicated thing. Like sometimes it can be as simple as just finding a healthy balance.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And another like great thing about this question, you kind of mentioned that maybe this can be therapeutic for you talking about these
Totally.
questions. But that's kind of what makes this question so great, is the fact that not only do you get something out of it, but I get something out of it, and the audience that's listening gets something out of it. And that's kind of where like all the special energy comes from, as far as just kind of getting vulnerable. And nobody likes to do that, but a lot of
Yeah. It's
times like
tough.
that's where the most healing comes from. And we have to like really realize as human beings that when we're talking about something that we are going through or aren't good at,
Mhm.
chances are there's so many other people out there that are experiencing and dealing with the same exact problem. It may not be the same exact situation, because obviously that's unique to ourselves, but as far as the energy that we're experiencing, we're all in this together.
Totally. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I kind of set out to do with Juice Feaster, which is kind of my platform for helping people with their health and
Hmm.
well-being, is I try and convey the stories that aren't so, pleasant, that I've had in my life, and how I've, this brutal situation that I may have been in, and what I did to kind of discover that I was actually in it. Because sometimes we're just not aware that we're in it.
Exactly.
So discovering what that brutal situation was, and then researching how to take care of it, and then kind of showing the steps to taking care of it, and what this divine feeling is that you experience after the fact. And so, if there's anything that I hope to do for people, is to kind of resonate with them on a level that, you know, if I did it, if I experienced it, you know, and I overcame it, they can too. And I guess that's my hope, um, with my platform that I have, is to really try and get those stories that were deep inside me, that I unlocked and figured out, and always continuing to improve. Of course, I don't have everything figured out, for sure. It's a lifetime of
Yeah.
continuous improvement for me, and I'm sure for most people. But um, just trying to resonate with people on that level.
Absolutely. And like that's how you get past and overcome these obstacles. Is obviously the first step is awareness, and realizing that you're in it. But then
Mm-hmm.
the next step is talking about it and getting it off your
Yeah.
chest and voicing that to other people,
Mm-hmm.
because you know first off, it's great for you. I mean, at the end of the day, you're doing it for your benefit. But as a
Mm-hmm.
byproduct, though, you're helping other people get through the same exact thing. And it may not be for everybody, but for the people that it is for, the people that it does touch, I mean, it's
It's
life
gold.
changing. It
Yeah, it's
is.
gold. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I did the same thing in my situation. I looked for other people who resonated with my story, and I did the same thing. I found people that I saw had kind of experienced what I had experienced, and or at least close to it, and mirrored them and kind of looked to them as mentors, and what I wanted to embody in my life. And there are a number of people that have played into who I am today. Some family members, and certainly people that through the magical world of podcasts and YouTube, that I was able to find these people. And I think that's just kind of the magic of the era that we live in now, that it's
Exactly.
very easy to access people and ideas, and find ways to fix ourselves that we've never really had before in the history of humankind. So it's pretty cool.
100%. And I'm actually really happy to hear you say that, because one of my buddies recently, so there's this show on Netflix. It's called Social Dilemma, and it basically talks about how social media and the Internet of Things is bad for people. Uh, but when used in the right way and in the right context, like you said, like it's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing about who you surround yourself in the physical realm.
Yeah.
What you consume online and what you consume, what's right in front of you, is always going to affect who you are, and you are the one that gets to decide what it is that you're consuming. But I feel like it's just so easy to point the finger at social media because it's the new thing, and we're not all aware of the positive things that it can do in life as well. But when you choose to engage in the right content, or at least the positive content that's best for you, that's when a lot of healing can happen. Whether that's how you found it or the content that you're now creating for people, and the people that I hope to reach through this podcast as well. A lot of good things can happen too, and that's an underrated side of the Internet of Things.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And I haven't seen that documentary. I've seen it referenced in a few places. And I can definitely agree that there's certainly I think with any media or medium of information, there are certainly things that we can line up with that aren't the best for us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to kind of lay blame on the type of media as the problem. Ultimately we're responsible for what we do with ourselves, just like I was when I started drinking and I couldn't stop. That was me. Is it the alcohol's fault? It's very tough for me to blame the alcohol for that. It was really me,
Exactly.
that made that choice, and how I interacted with that alcohol. There are a lot of people that can engage with it and not have any issues. So I think it's really the same with media, and the opportunity for you and I to engage today wouldn't probably be possible
Exactly.
if I mean, it could have been possible. It'd have been much more difficult for us to, I probably never would have met you or had a chance to have this conversation today. So I think it's all about how we choose to interact with it and engage with it and make it work for the common good.
Exactly. I couldn't said it better myself. That's
Cool.
a wonderful way of putting it. And like how you said, it's all about ourselves as an individual and how we interact with it. Like a lot of us nowadays, it's so easy just to point the finger at something else and be like, it's that thing's fault. When really we just need to take a step back, look in the mirror, and see how we engage with it on a personal level, and we can learn a lot from that and get the most beneficial stuff out of it if we choose to perceive it that way. And as far as like saying, without going too far down that, you can say social media is bad, but again, it just comes down to what you're consuming, whether that be positive or negative. And that's been going on since, the beginning of time, right? So either through books or over the radio at one point, or then it was TV, and then now it just happens to be social media.
It's a different platform.
Exactly.
That works a lot faster. It's a lot,
Yeah.
The pace with which things come at you is it's like fire hose compared to
it's immediate now.
It's just immediate. I think one thing that I've really noticed as I've put out information that is kind of geared to help people is I see the impact that I can have on someone's life that 30, 20, maybe even 10 or 15 years ago couldn't have happened in the same way. I have a series of informational books and guides for people, or a course. I have an online course for people to dig into. And prior to having these platforms available for us to interact with people and be social with people as we are today, I would have had to have written a book, written a manuscript. I would have had to have, found a publisher or an agent that would have even lined me up with a publisher,
Right.
then had them approve it and kind of massage it to what would work for their audience, and then publish it. And I don't even know the steps that it would have taken for me to present myself to people to help them. There were these gatekeepers that stood in the way of me being able to provide my information to people as easily as I am today. And so it's really leveled out the playing field for people to be able, for you to have a podcast before these platforms were available. You would have been very difficult for you to have had a radio show
Exactly.
that interviewed people like me or all the other people that you interview. And so to me, that is just an incredible opportunity that that we have available to us through social media or all these other platforms. So I'm pretty stoked on it. I know there's some things that can be bad about it, but
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Yep. And it all just comes back to balancing it, have a healthy relationship with it, and then choosing what you want to consume, whether that be positive or negative.
Totally.
It's a good way of putting it. 100%.
Awesome.
So if there was one thing that you could tell your past self, what would that be?
Oh gosh. One thing that I could tell my past self, I think for me, confidence, having confidence in myself. And I've always had a curiosity, but I think sometimes confidence in my ability to take the leap and kind of take the calculated risk was something that maybe I didn't always take. So if I could, go back to my 18-year-old self and say, Brett, if you could do this one thing, I think that would be it. Maybe just to take the leap, the informed leap a little sooner, a little more confidently and charismatically, and listen to your inner voice more, and to be more engaged with that inner intuitive nature that we have.
Yes.
So I think if I could say any one thing, it'd be just listen and be confident.
I love that. I resonate a lot with that as far as the inner work that I've been doing lately too, and that's be more confident in yourself and listen to your intuition. A lot of us have that. We hear it all the time, but then we kind of let the ego take over and tell us that we're not good enough, or we have no business doing whatever it is that you think you should be doing. And when you just have that confident nature to just really trust yourself and listen to your intuition and take that first step and make that leap, magical things really do happen. And you'll never know if you can actually do it until you try anyway. So, at least you won't have that regret, of like, man, why didn't I just try that? Maybe it could have worked, but because I was too scared to try, I'll just never know. And I feel like that's one of the worst experiences that you could have, is just regret. That really just eats at you for time to come.
For a long time. I think if I could add a second thing
sure.
into the mix there, just having the ability to feel in the present and feel what it is that you're interested in being like in the future, and kind of feeling that feeling right now and aligning with that, has really been something that I've enjoyed lately, as opposed to just putting things on a pedestal, you know, being more of a person that is just okay with everything that's going on right now and super gracious about where I'm at right now and that that's all cool. And just feeling and embracing that feeling in the moment. And I think if there's one thing I wish I maybe could have had, you know, an extra 20 years of practice on leading up to this point, it would be that just being good with where things are at right now and uh, lining things up in a way that uh, paralleled with where I want it to be. I think that would have been something that would have been really cool to have experienced an extra 20 years of or so, which
It's
kind of
never
goes
too
back
late.
to that. Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I think kind of goes back to that childlike feeling we were
Yeah.
speaking of earlier. You know, I think maybe having more time dedicated to that in the past would have been a good. If I could go back and tell 18-year-old Brett to just be chill and be gracious and line yourself up with your values and your ethics. I think that would have been a good piece of advice.
Yes, it's wonderful advice, especially for anyone that's going to listen to this. And I think that's something that we all sort of need to work on as far as manifesting the life that actually aligns with who we are at our core. You know, a lot of us get caught up in what society wants for us, or what our parents want for us, or what our spouse or what our best friends want for us. But you know, what it really comes down to, like, what do you want for yourself, and how do
Yeah.
you want to give back? And if you can align with that, like how you said, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And one of the inner work courses that I'm taking right now actually talks about that. You know, aligning with what you want out of life and manifesting the life that you want. And one surefire way to create blockages around that is, as you mentioned, is putting things up on a pedestal. And when
Okay.
you
Cool.
do that, you're almost, you know, getting in the way of the universal way of things, of how it works and how you do align yourself with things. So if you ever want something, you know, it's great to, you know, do what it takes to get to there. But it's the moment you put it on a pedestal is the
It's
moment that it's taken away from you.
it's like you're when that chase begins.
Yeah,
When you start chasing something, it's almost like it's going to run away from you. Anything
exactly.
that's being chased doesn't want to be caught, you know.
Yeah,
So
it's almost like
that's cool.
the donkey or the horse with the stick and the carrot in front of him. Yeah,
It's
and
never
you're
going to
just
get
never gonna get it.
it.
Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, that's cool. I definitely need to spend more time on that and digging into that because I've had some things happen to me recently that have been really great, and I think as I've looked at how they've happened, uh, I haven't really thought too much about them. You know, I haven't really spent too much time, uh, you know, or obsessing about them,
Mm-hmm.
or I think I've just been interested in them, and I felt like they lined up with where I was going and what I wanted to do, but I didn't uh, really stress out about them, or I didn't really, you know, put too much um, energy into thinking about them other than I just thought they were really cool and it would be a good lineup with what I'm doing. So maybe that's a good example of how it happens is I just didn't, you know, I didn't chase it. So they happened. So
So I'm smiling right now because that was actually the next step of what they talk about in that course, and it's
cool.
the best way to speed up that process as far as manifesting what you want into your life is putting it out there that you want it and that it does align with you and it is something that's cool for you, and then just letting it go.
Just
And
be
that's
with it.
that's
Yeah.
the hardest step to do, is because
Yeah.
it's almost like a contradiction, right? Because
Right.
you want
Right. You got to
something,
pursue it. Yeah. Go
so
after it.
I have to go after it. I have to, like, obsess over it. But that's actually just creating blockages around it. But as soon as you know, again, put it out there that you want it, and then just kind of release it out into, you know, the flow of things, that's the
Mhm.
quickest way it comes back to
That's
you.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that doesn't mean,
Um,
like, just do nothing, but you know, obviously you still
yeah.
have to work towards that goal. But
That's the unique part, I guess, that I'm learning is that, you know, what's the balance of taking the action steps that you need to take to kind of line yourself up with it.
yeah.
And, you know, and without that being such a pedestal type pursuit, or putting it up on a level that's pure high, unattainable. What's the balance there? So I
Yeah,
guess that's the art. That's the art and the
it is.
practice.
It is an art, 100%.
Cool.
And I feel like it's different for everybody. You know,
Mm-hmm.
What works for someone else as far as aligning themselves with something is going to be different for the next person. But that's kind of like the beauty of things, though, right? Is finding
Yeah.
what
Right.
works best for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but just
That's
knowing
cool.
that it's going to come to you, though, like you always have to keep that perspective. As long as you're not obsessing over it or putting it over a pedestal, like eventually it's going to come back to you. So you can't lose sight of that.
That's cool. Well, I'm gonna keep digging on that then for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I've been, I've just found out about it myself, so I of course need to do a lot of work on it myself. But it's definitely good knowledge to know and actually have that perspective of understanding how things work when it comes to aligning yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes, sir. So for the next question, what are some obstacles that you've encountered lately or in the past that you'd be comfortable talking about today on the Peace Talk?
Obstacles. Certainly in business, in the past, there were uh, financial obstacles. There were interpersonal relationship and leadership blockages and things like that. Lately, I honestly haven't had too many blockages, but um, in the past, there were definitely, you interpersonal relations with people and selecting people for employees. And I think being able to engage with people on a one, I think one thing that I've always struggled with is that um, it's been very difficult for me to be engaged with someone in business or as a manager or employer to an
Mm-hmm.
employee and be friends with them and be a leader to them. That's
Right.
always been a very difficult thing for me. So if I've had someone that I've worked with, I always really want to be friends with them. But sometimes that friendship is tough to manage when you may also have a business relationship or a employee employer relationship. And so navigating that has been a tough one for me.
Yeah.
Um, and I think being able to uh, navigate that water successfully is definitely a skill set that I could use a lot more work in.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to be friends with everybody, but sometimes there has to be, some discipline and some direction, and that's tough to do um, for me as a friend sometimes. So yeah, it's
Absolutely.
definitely been a tough one for me.
Yeah, and in my business yet, I don't have any employees under me, so I can't relate there. But as far as being a new parent, I can sort of relate to that. As far as of course, you want to be cool with your kid, and you want them to
Right,
look up to you and love you and stuff like that. But then you have to kind of find that balance of like when to discipline them on this and like how
right,
far do you go in that discipline? Like what's too much, what's too little. Um,
yeah.
but it all kind of just comes back to that balance of things. But
Yeah, that's I'd never thought about it in a parent-child relationship, but it's
yeah,
it's similar, because and even more intense because you're it's your DNA,
exactly.
or
Yeah,
even if yeah, just it's very very close to the vest for sure.
yeah. It's weird, especially having it being your first one, and obviously with experience, or hopefully with experience at least, it gets easier. But yeah, it's just again, it just comes down to that like you want them to respect you, but you also don't want them to hate you. You know, so
Right. Fine balance.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and again, experience will alleviate some of that. But yeah, I think that's something that we all have to um, uh, you know, just kind of do trial and error as far as what works and what doesn't. And I guess you could probably put that into perspective with, relationships with your friends too, right? Because you want your friends to respect you, but you don't want your friends to also think like you're too uptight, and you don't,
Right.
Want anything to go by. So yeah, just finding that balance and of what's too much and what's too little in relationships is something that we all probably will continue to work on throughout our lifetime.
Yeah, definitely. And as I've been thinking about it here, it's brought up some emotions with me, and I've actually even made some statements as I've out loud that as I've transitioned, as my wife and I transitioned out of business ownership, where we had anywhere from 10 to 20 part-time to full-time employees, to
Right.
not having any at all, I made kind of a statement out loud that I would never have employees ever again. So it's brought up some emotions that I hadn't thought about in a while, and
Yeah.
I think one of the benefits of what I'm doing now is I tend to hire virtual assistants.
Hmm.
I'm a terrible graphic designer, so if I make an ebook, I just write the copy, and then I find someone who's good at making a design of an ebook, and I have them
Right.
do it. But it's a contractual relationship rather than a long-term employee-employer relationship. And so I guess that's a good fit for me. I guess I figured out that it's a better fit for me than being an employer. So I guess we find our way.
Yeah, that's another benefit of the Internet of Things as well, as you can, otherwise without that you wouldn't have been able to find that sort of relationship.
Yeah.
And you would have had to find someone, physically and actually hire them on and have this long-term relationship. When, in some realms, when it just comes to creating graphic design, it doesn't need to be that long, relationship. It just needs to be, contractual as far as
Yeah.
what you need and what that other person needs.
Right. Right. Whatever
Yeah,
the immediate needs are, and then go from there.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've definitely got some work to do in that realm too.
Yeah, so yeah, I like that. Just finding that balancing relationships is something that we can all do better with, I think.
Hmm.
And,
Hmm.
um, all right, so we've talked about a lot of you know about you and some tactics that you've used, but what are some other tactics that you've used throughout your life that have helped you get back on track when you've kind of felt yourself
Hmm.
drifting away?
Yeah. For me, one of the things that I've always been pretty good about is if I set out on a course to make an improvement with myself, um, there's 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be perfect at it. Maybe 10 times out of 10, you're not going to be perfect at it. None of us are
Yeah.
perfect at it.
Nope.
But I think one strategy that I've always um, had and felt like that I've been good at is that I'm always pretty gentle on myself. I don't really beat myself up too much if I fall off the wagon on something. Um, I just kind of take it for what it is. I learn from it, and I try and move on and take it as a learning experience. So, for example, if you get on an exercise routine and you're doing good for a little while, and then your work gets in the way, your life gets in the way in some way, shape, or form, and you kind of fall off the wagon. I think oftentimes people will really just beat themselves up to the point to where it's detrimental to them,
Yeah.
to be able to carry forward. One thing I've been really good at is just being like, hey, it's okay. None of us are perfect. Let's just hop back on and take it from there, and keep that movement going upward, even
Absolutely.
if it might be slowly. Know that you're moving forward. Your momentum is going forward, as a whole. So that's been a big thing I think that's really helped me in being persistent and consistent as much as possible. Has been a really good strategy for me.
Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful perspective to have on things, is that progress is progress, whether no matter how small of a step forward that you're taking, like as long as it's a step forward, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And that moment that you decide to start talking negatively to yourself, is a step in the wrong direction. And a lot of us
Yeah.
do that to ourselves. Like, it really is true. A lot of the times, in most cases, if not all the time, like, we're our own worst enemy when it comes to situations like this. And, like you said, like, it's just, I feel like that's part of being a human. Like, it's like built
Yeah.
into each and one of our DNAs is that we are not perfect, and it's gonna
Right.
take time to get into things. And if we can just keep that perspective of, the reason why you started this journey in the first place was to benefit yourself.
Patience. Just be patient. Be
Exactly.
kind. Yeah. Realize that it's the journey that matters more, I think, really than the destination. Even
Yes.
though we're so focused on that destination, that end point, and but just being okay with the path that you're on, and the experience that you have when you're out on that path, and I think that really helps for sure.
Yeah. So maybe that's kind of a connecting point as far as the putting yourself in alignment with what is best for you is when you declare it, that's you talking about the destination. And that's kind of where we create those blockages is we get so focused on the destination that we forget about enjoying the journey. So after you declare it and you talk about the destination, just kind of forget about that. And then from there on out until it comes into your life, just enjoy the journey every single day, every single moment. And if you can do that, that's when you're always putting yourself one step closer to where you actually want to be.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and time passes, so effortlessly that if we're
yeah,
just, incrementally, consistently, 0.5% or 1% better every day,
it
over
adds up.
time, yeah, over time, those gains they show up. I think oftentimes we're looking for that really quick, gratifying effect from actions that we take, and I think we just being patient and realizing that it'll happen with with time, as long as you're making those small steps, is a good way to approach it.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of a good point that you made. It's like when we're going on that journey of benefiting ourselves or going or bettering ourselves, with our action, we always want to see like constant growth and constant,
Mm-hmm.
positivity, coming into our lives because we're doing something that's, supposed to be better for ourselves. But that's not really how life works, right? Like you're not always going to see the positive effects that you're getting out of something. A lot of times, like you're going to be working and working and working, and you're not going to see anything at all. But if you can learn to enjoy that part of the journey, that once that good does finally come, like it's just gonna wow you,
It's magic, yeah.
It is. So yeah, it focus on the journey for everyone that's listening. It's good to talk about the destination from time to time, but you can't obsess over that. Enjoy
Yeah,
what it takes to get there.
absolutely.
Yeah. And then so we are wow. Okay, so we're actually coming up on an hour. I did time always flies when we do
I
these
love it.
things. I
I
always
love it. Yeah.
I always like worry that they're gonna last like 15 minutes and be like, oh crap, like we went through everything.
How
But
am I going to fill this?
yeah, but it always runs its course. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. It's
Uh,
awesome.
but for our last question, we have and this one is you know a good one to end it on. So if there was any advice that you could give someone out there right now that's struggling with something that to them seems impossible, what would that be? And I know we've given a lot of good stuff today, but
Sure. Yeah.
yeah,
Probably just a summary of what I've talked about thus far. But, if you're really dealing with some significant struggles, I think really focusing on, some basic pillars of your health, um, your relationships, um, the type of food and beverages that you consume, the people you surround yourself with, nature. I think really kind of focusing on some key pillars that will bring you health and vitality, and people that you're surrounding yourself with that will challenge you and support you and rise you up, raise you up. I think just taking those steps are so vital to, they're so vital to how it carries through to the other things that might be going in our life, the challenges that we're experiencing, whether it's in our career or our relationships. Just having the courage to kind of make those continuous improvement steps, and take your life forward. And I think, we all face impossible, insurmountable, or seemingly insurmountable challenges sometimes. And so just really focusing on some key pillars really will help you get through those, for sure.
That's wonderful. I really like that one. As far as just, identifying what those pillars are to you, even if you're not aware of what those pillars are right now, that could be your first step, is identifying what those pillars are, and then how can you move in the right direction of, focusing on those pillars in the best way that benefits you. That's really good advice. I like that a lot.
Awesome. Yeah, music, nature, a lot of these things, if we're kind of feeding ourselves the wrong things in all of those mediums, it can really play into how we handle insurmountable challenges. So yeah, digging in on those is awesome.
Yes, and that's another good point, is finding what those pillars are to you, like as far as alignment with yourself. Like, everybody's pillars are going to be different. Just because your parents or your best friend's pillars are this doesn't mean yours has to be that. So if you can identify the pillars that are important and in alignment with you, that can be a wonderful first step. That's great.
Yeah,
definitely. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Brett, this was fantastic. Now that you've kind of talked about your juice journey, I would love to have you back on eventually, and you could kind of, give us what it looks like to go through that, maybe for 30 days or even up to 100 days, however long you'd love to, because I feel like we just scratched the surface as far as like what benefits that can bring to your life. And I had no idea that this was even a thing. I looked at your profile, but it wasn't until you actually talked about it that I saw like how cool this could be. And eventually I feel like I want to try it out myself. So awesome. Yeah, I would love to have you back on sometime to kind of talk about what that journey looks like.
Yeah, I'd love to dig in a little deeper on that with you, and I appreciate you having me on today and digging in on these questions and great topics today. It's been good for me to answer some of those questions. Like I said earlier, it's a little bit like therapy to just kind of get some of those things off your chest.
Absolutely.
When the right questions come up, we can hit the button and eject.
Exactly. And that's what I've always wanted this show to be about, was for whoever is on the show, like you today, get something out of it. Me, the host, I get something out of it. I always learn something new from the beautiful people that I bring on, and then of course everyone that's listening gets something out of it. So it's just a healing experience for everybody.
Yeah, I concur. I agree. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Brady.
Well, thank you, Brett. It was truly an honor and a blessing to have you on today. And we will catch you next time, guys. As usual, stay safe, stay beautiful. Peace. Thank you so much for your continued support. And if you enjoyed what you heard today, consider checking us out on Instagram. And we're also available on Spotify, Apple Music, and Google Podcasts. Again, thank you so much. And as usual, stay beautiful, stay safe, and stay sparky. Until next time, peace.